Shootings and gun control in America. In order to understand the complexity of gun control and gun violence, we have to start at the beginning. The Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. To this day, 227 years later, people still preach their rights to the Second Amendment, even though the world is rapidly changing. So why has everything stayed the same? Well, there has been one change: background checks. Since we don't live in 1791 anymore, guns aren't available to just anyone anymore. People started killing other people outside of the battleground, which is what led to the example of modern-day gun violence. Since gun violence is a fairly common way of murders and suicide, precautions are taken before an individual is allowed to buy a gun, one of which is a background check by the FBI. A quote from Fox News article explains what that background check is. In order to purchase a gun from a federal firearms licensed dealer, aka FFL, a consumer must provide identification and pass a federal background check using the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The first page of the document requires basic information including the buyer's full name, address, sex, birthday, and ethnicity. A social security number is encouraged but not required. The form also asks the buyer about criminal background, immigration status, and mental health, information that could result in the consumer being denied. These questions include: have you ever been convicted in a court of a felony or any other crime for which the judge could have imprisoned you for more than 1 year, even if you received a shorter sentence, including probation? Are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? Have you been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions? And have you ever been convicted in a court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence? There are more questions on the actual form than the ones I just read. Even after I read what the other questions were, I thought that the article did a really good job of pulling out some of the most important questions. But once you pass those lists of questions, you're able to buy a gun. The process is strict, but to me it seems like it's not strict enough, considering the fact that mass shootings continue to happen. So why do the shootings continue to happen if America enforces strict background checks to prevent gun theft from people who are not fit to have a gun? The answer is people. Every time a new mass shooting happens, I always wonder what a shooter has gone through and what led them to act violently. Haven't you? It is not wrong to have empathy for these people, and I am sure that I am not the only one who thinks this way. One of the leading reasons as to why people feel the need to act so violently are mental health problems, and one of the reasons as to why people struggle with mental health are because of past or current trauma. During the level 1 part of this project, I watched a TED Talk about this man named Eric Starr. That's him. He delivered a speech called "I Was Almost a School Shooter." Any guesses as to why he was almost a school shooter?
Because maybe he was able to lie on his background check and purchase a gun.
No, but that's a good guess.
Never mind. Go on.
Okay. Yeah.
Could have like a mental illness or something.
So I did watch this video again while I was typing all of my stuff, and I pulled out a bunch of keywords from it, but I decided that it's better if you guys just watch it, because it's a really, really interesting video, and it gave me a different perspective about everything, so I want you guys to watch it. Will sound work on this?
Yes.
I was almost a school shooter. 1996, Denver, Colorado, was a student in North High. In a moment of pain and anger, I almost committed a terrible atrocity. Growing up, I learned early on there was a strange comfort and calmness in darkness. I was always the new kid. My family was very violent and aggressive, drug-addicted parents. We were moving from place to place a lot, went to 30 or 40 different schools, always seemed to be going to a new school every other week. You woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning by some cops, you'd run across the country to get away from them, and ended up at a school I'd only be at for a couple weeks, and then have to do it all again a couple days later. I was the perpetual new kid. Since I also had such an unstable household, wasn't helped by the fact that I smelled really bad because I never had a shower, or didn't really have any clean clothes, so I never really had any, all my clothes were dirty and torn. I I had a weight problem. I was smart. I liked comic books at a time when kids didn't really like people who liked comic books that much. So every time I went to a new school, I was in a whole new set of bullies. They'd do things like walk up to me and shoot me with a harpoon like I was a whale, or dump food on my head because I said I was too fat. But the bullying wasn't just at home, or wasn't just at school. It happened at home a lot too. I was told I was worthless by just about everybody in my life. And when you're told you're worthless enough, you will believe it, and you're going to do everything you can to make everybody else agree with it too. And so I did. I wrapped that darkness around me like a blanket and used it as a shield. It would keep the few that would agree with me close, but it kept everybody else away. I always had heard in life that there was good people and bad people. I must be one of the bad people, so I guess I would have to just do what I was supposed to do. So I got really aggressive. 12, 13 years old, I got really into heavy metal music, and I was the mosh pit when I went to concerts. The abuse just never seemed to stop. I got into cutting around 14 or 15 because I figured that there was all this extreme emotion going on in my life I had absolutely no control over. I had to find some way to find control over something, so I took to cutting myself. I still have the scars to this day. 15, 16 years old, I ended up homeless. My parents had long ago kicked me out because I didn't want to deal with their drunken fighting anymore, so I was living on the streets. I thought I had pushed all my other friends away too, shoved them all away by lying to them or stealing from them, or doing everything that my family taught me how to react to everybody, which was the complete wrong way of how to react. But I had no idea. I was just going on what I was taught. Finally, 16 years old, I'm sitting in my best friend's shed, who I thought I had already pushed away too by stealing from him and lying from him. Laying in this shed with the roof wide open, rain pouring down on me into a dungy grace chair that was covered in cobwebs and dirt, hadn't been touched in months. I'm sitting there with my arm covered in blood, knowing that if I didn't do something, I was going to kill myself soon. So, I did the only thing I could think of to do. Grabbed a phone book and I called social services. So when I went to social services, sadly they didn't just bring me in there, they also took my mom in there too, who happened to be one of the largest sources of my pain growing up. And since she had spent her entire life running from place to place and dealing with social workers and police officers, she knew exactly what to say to get them to believe that I was just making it all up. It was all just an act. I was just doing it for attention. And they sent me home with her. And as they sent me home with her, she turned to me and she said, "Next time you should do a better job and I'll buy you the razor blades." My heart just got ripped out of me at that point completely. That darkness that I've been staring at for so long, I just ran headlong into it. I had nothing left to live for. I literally had nothing to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can do anything. And that is a terrifying thought. I decided that my act of doing something was I was going to express my extreme anger and rage by getting a gun. I was going to attack either my school or a mall food court. It really didn't matter to me which one. It wasn't about the people. It was about the largest amount of damage in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of security. Both those places were like targets. So, I wish I had a better story about actually getting a gun, but that was actually really rather businesslike. There was some gangbanger kids near my school. It was back in the mid-90s when gangs were still a rather major problem in North Denver schools. And this kid had seen me, he knew me from my family, and he'd sold drugs to them before, and he knew that I wasn't really in school, I was just always at school, so he knew I wasn't a narc or anything like that. But didn't know him anything more than a first name. That didn't really take anything more than that. I knew that they had access to guns and talked about it all the time. So I went up to him and said, "Hey, can you give me a gun?" "Sure, give me an ounce." "All right, give me 3 days." That was it. I was waiting to give myself a gun so I could kill a lot of people. Thankfully, I wasn't alone in that darkness. That best friend who had saved me, I was sleeping in his shed, he saw the place that I was in. Even though I had stolen from him and lied to him and took his belongings and ruined it all, he didn't care. He still brought me in and showed me acts of kindness. Just simple acts. It wasn't the kind of overbearing kindness where they come to you and they say, "Is there anything I can do to you? Is there a program I can get you in? Is there something I can do to make you better? How can I help you?" It was literally just sitting down next to me. "Hey, would you like a meal? Let's watch a movie." Treat it like it was a Tuesday. Treat me like I was a person. And when someone treats you like you're a person, when you don't even feel like you're human, it'll change your entire world. It did to me. He stopped me with his acts of kindness from committing that atrocity that day. If you see someone who's in that spot that needs that love, give it to them. Love the ones you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most. It'll help you just like as much as it helps them. We're in a really big, dangerous spot right now with this trend of arming the teachers and looking out for the kids who might be the threat in schools and maybe turning them into the FBI. What's that going to do to a kid who's in the position that I was in 25 years ago, who's alone and depressed and abused, and is just sitting there hurting, and someone thinks that they're a threat? So it gets turned to the FBI, and 1 month of pain turns into a lifetime of legal trouble because one person thought he was going to be a problem. Instead of looking at that kid like he's a threat, look at him like he might be a friend. Look at him like you might be able to bring him into your fold. Show him that it's just a Tuesday. Show him that he's worth it. Show him that he can exist in this pain, even though it's intense, that at the end of it there is light at the end of the tunnel. I found my light. Now I'm a happy family man. I'm a father of 4. My wife and my daughter are in the audience today. And even bigger than that, the friend who saved my life, he's in the audience today too. Because friendship doesn't have to die. We have to give love to the people who we think deserve it the least. Thank you.
So that video really just, I've watched it and it just changed my whole perspective on the whole thing. I hope it did the same for you. It's a really powerful video. But I researched Nicholas Cruz, who was the shooter from Stone and Douglas. I don't know how to say it, Stone and Douglas. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold from the Columbine shooting, Adam Lanza from Sandy Hook, and Stephen Paddock from Las Vegas. Those are 3 school shootings and 1 mass shooting. But the thing that they all had in common was that they all suffered from mental health issues. The ones who were involved in the school shootings were bullied. Stephen Paddock struggled with a lifetime of depression and anxiety from personal traumas. So, what about the shootings that happen that don't make it to major news networks? I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, a city ridden with drugs and crime, and I imagine that the reasons why school shootings happen so often there is because a lot of the kids don't feel loved, just like Eric Stark. And even though I'm from Baltimore, I never ever see any school shootings that happen in the city on the news, and I know that they happen, I know they do, they're just never making on the news. So it's just really important to be nice to people. You never know what someone's going through. When people feel lost enough, they might react violently, especially if their assets are right in front of them, just like Eric Stark. So, to me, gun violence is a people problem. And don't get me wrong, I don't agree with the saying, take guns away from people who shouldn't have them. I think that mental health is one of the biggest reasons as to why people take part in school shootings. No one seems to care or even think about that detail. I also think that guns should not be so readily available to the general public. Take Eric Stark, for example. He understands the issue of kids struggling with mental illness who have violent thoughts because he was one of them. He had horrible mental health problems, and just from the kindness of one person, violence was prevented. Imagine the impact that could have on thousands of kids around the country. It's so important to be nice to everyone you come in contact with because you never know what someone's going through. Another solid point that Aaron made is that it is the wrong move to report someone before knowing what the whole situation is. This happens more often than you think, and it can have a detrimental impact on someone. They have to deal with a lifetime of crap from police and government officials just because someone was scared of them. Reaching out to someone, close or not, could save lives, not ruin them. Gun violence is a really complicated issue, and I know that not all of you agree with me or see things the way that I see them. But I would like it if all of you could just try to understand why I feel this way about gun violence. On March 24th, 2018, I took part in the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. It was one of the most empowering moments of my life. I was surrounded by other compassionate people who wanted to change just as badly as I did. There's no stronger feeling than being surrounded by people who are so happy to be together but also carry so much rage. And this picture was after the march, and me and my friends just sat on top of that statue, and within like an hour or so, like hundreds of pictures were taken of us, and a photographer like took pictures of us since I did, and I just thought that was kind of cool. But the reason why why I put that picture in there is because I hope that if they were posted anywhere, the people who saw them felt just as empowered as I did on that day. In order to make a change, we need to understand the situation because comprehension is the first step in trying to fix a problem. If you would like to take action in getting more regulated gun control, I would recommend attending marches and protests or calling your state representatives to argue your point and express how this issue personally affects you. Also, vote in the primaries are coming up and you can register to vote online in 5 minutes. Questions? Yes.
What are your thoughts on the opinion that mental illness is a scapegoat for gun violence and demonizing people with mental illness to blame it on mass shooters or blame mental illness for the violence of mass shooters?
So, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, a lot of people use mental illness as a like the reason behind mass shootings. My opinion of it is that sometimes I feel like people use it as a scapegoat when really the issue is like guns are extremely accessible and very easy to get. And like I have mental illness and I'm sure and it's very, very common. And I feel like using it as like the main reason behind mass shootings is kind of demonizes mental illness. So what are your thoughts?
So, I struggle with mental illness, as probably like more than half the people in this room do. I do not think that it is the main reason why people partake in shootings. That was not the point of this presentation at all. If that's the vibe you got, I'm sorry. I just think that it does play a role in shootings because, I mean, someone who, I don't know, I just feel like no normal person would go and do that if there's not some deeper reason as to why they want to act so violently. And I do agree with you that guns are really accessible, which is why I said I don't think that they should be so readily available to the general public. But I do think that mental illness plays a very large role in it. And I have to think more about this question. We'll talk after class. Any other questions? Yeah.
What made you pick gun violence in your topic?
I just feel like it's a really prominent issue in today's society. There's been a lot of shootings this year and in the past years. And I also did go to the March for Our Lives, and I just feel like it's an issue that I didn't really know that much about before I did all the research for this project. And I was interested in learning more and seeing what I could do and educating all of you guys about it.
Do you believe in a death penalty for gun shooters?
I don't know. I really don't know. I would have to think about that more. I can't really just give you an answer off the top of my head for that question.
It's more of a compliment. I really liked your presentation. I thought it went really well and it was backed up with a lot of sources.
Thank you. Yeah?
I watched, for step one, I watched a TED Talk called Why Gun Violence Can't Be Our New Normal.
I watched that one too.
Yeah, do you like it?
Mm-hmm.
I was about to recommend it.
Yeah, it's a good one. I watched like all of the TikToks about
Yeah.
gun violence. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I was looking at the posters from the final photograph that you showed, and the first poster with the person sitting on the left said parents should be attending our graduation, not our funeral, right? And I think everybody in the room would agree with that. And I think parents would vastly agree with that. I think that we have a consensus around the idea that, young people need to be safe. All people need to be safe, but specifically dealing with gun violence, young people deserve safety, right? That they're not necessarily getting at this point. The next poster, however, about sensible gun control, that's where the problem lies, right? We can't agree on what's sensible. So you started out by talking about background checks, and is that one step towards sensible gun control? Is the federally mandated background checks?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think that the background checks, kind of following along what Nina asked me, they kind of do demonize mental health because it's like if you're mentally ill or unstable, you can't buy a gun because you may act violently. But at the same time, I feel like it's hard for me to like reciprocate how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's terribly complicated. And I guess my follow-up question then is, so it's my, and you've done more research than I have on this, so is it correct that these are all self-reported measures? So the federal background check, the person who's applying responds to the questions, and there's no additional documentation required?
No, so the questions that I had listed, these, so the article that I read pulled just 4 of the questions out of the actual form you have to fill out to be able to buy a gun.
Okay.
And I found, so there's like a form online where you can find the whole application, and I read through all of the questions, and I thought that the article did a really good job of pulling out kind of the key ideas
Yeah. Okay.
behind the general questions and like what it requires to get a gun. So I just kind of kept it that way.
Mhm.
There are more questions regarding, there's specific questions about like mental health, your immigration status, and there's more like stuff about drugs and like criminal activity and stuff like that.
But you're self-reporting. You don't have to show a clean drug test or, any paperwork behind any of this. Is that correct?
I actually don't know, and I
Okay.
should have researched that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's my question,
Because
because
anyone
what would
can
keep
just
any
lie on
right? What would keep folks from just going, yeah, no, or does the person who takes the form, are they responsible for verifying the information on the
Does
form?
anyone know the answer to that?
It's I do. It's pretty much all verified by the FBI.
Okay,
If you lie on it, you're just gonna get denied.
so the ATF forwards it to the FBI, who then verifies all your responses.
takes like
Oh, okay.
I'm a hunter, so I know about this.
Yeah, I mean, they did my background check to work here in like less than a week,
Yeah,
So-
I don't know why it takes so long.
right,
It's
okay.
probably not a bad thing to be honest.
Okay. What is, I mean, I'm curious about the rest of you, and
You've been raising your hand for a while.
Oh, so even if the FBI increases like the background check, wouldn't that wouldn't serve any point? Like, so say if people have like ghost guns. I remember watching this like documentary on.
What's a ghost gun?
It's like basically a gun with like no serial numbers.
It's like an illegal gun.
So basically, but what the guy said was like, you know what I mean, the group of like teens or whatever, like they said, you know what I mean, he's like, oh yeah, I need a gun. He's like, oh yeah, in 3 days. Like
Yeah.
how can I think the fact of like gun violence is like how the FBI can like get control of those unmarked guns that are like, you know what I mean, they could be stolen, they could be taken, they could, you know what I mean, they could be someone
Yeah.
could have like
There's
made
pretty
it,
much an
homemade.
illegal market for everything out there.
Yeah. And I know like in some states if it's like for like a rifle or something, I know if you like cut like 3 inches off the barrel, it's like considered like a federal crime because it's like making it like say like a hunting weapon to like a concealed weapon. So it's like altering the use and like it'd be like and when you go hunting with it, then you turn it into an assault rifle, a weapon. Or
Sorry, I forgot your name.
Back here, Eamon.
What is it?
Eamon.
Eamon? Yeah. Okay.
Just going off Chandler's point, it's like super to file off the serial number, and like I think it last times comes it usually because like normally when someone files off a serial number, that isn't gonna help somebody get a gun without a background check. What that does is it makes the gun untraceable to them. What I think probably the biggest problem with like people being able to just kind of get guns comes from gun chips, because a lot of these private sales don't need background checks. So I live in Massachusetts, which has super strict gun laws, and I could just go up to New Hampshire and get like a machine gun basically with if I write in the back of my license that I live in New Hampshire, I can basically just go up there and buy a machine gun. I don't know. I feel like but that's part of like I don't know. Maybe you might remember like that's part of what Dan talked about in his TED Talk where he was like, oh, I forget if he used the term gun sale loophole or if I heard that somewhere else, but gun shows, big problem.
Yeah. the only people who would be like allowed to have guns and like actually have access to guns would be people who are part of like the police system or the like FBI or the government. Just because like yeah, police brutality is a thing, but most cops are good cops and they use their guns to protect against horrible people. So I think in a perfect world, only like important government officials and security officials should be allowed to have guns. I don't really think that people should be allowed to have guns in their house, but it's really complicated because if guns weren't on sale to the general public, people would still find a way to get them. Even if they were taken away now, people would still find a way to get them. It's kind of like buying drugs. Like you're always going to be able to find a way to get it if you want it that bad. So the whole thing is just complicated. It's kind of just like a cycle. It's not perfect.
No, I think you're right that the situation is extremely complex and that we have to move carefully. I mean, I'm from the South, and I grew up in a family of hunters. And that's part of our culture. It's part of how we eat. You know, it's part of how we spend time together, right? So I think we have to be sensitive to that and to the other purposes of guns. You know, what you mentioned seemed to be much more in line with European societies. So for instance, in Germany, only the law enforcement officials and only your one person if you live in a small village, the one person in the village who's responsible for killing wild boar gets a gun, right, for wildlife control purposes. And so I don't know if there's a happy medium there. But I do think that, you know, what we can do, like we can't figure it all out, right? But we can say, here's one step that might be useful, right? And so from what I hear you saying is that the federal background check is one step we might take that would make a difference. It certainly is not going to solve all the problems, as you all are saying, because of the availability of guns at gun shows, because of black market and, you know, ghost guns, all that. But it could be one step toward, you know, remedying the issue.
Yeah. So class is over in 2 minutes. I didn't
Yes.
do my participatory activity or my survey.
Oh no.
Yeah. So okay, you guys can do this in 2 minutes. We pass it around. What should I do about my activity?
I thought the discussion was your activity, so that's why I was going long. It didn't cut that off.
I had a different activity, but I can do it in the next class in 5 minutes.
Okay, I would say tell Dr. Roth that we had a really, and I'll tell her, we had a really wonderful participatory discussion,
Okay.
and she may be able to save 5 minutes next class for doing that.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.